G'day guys, how are you going? So the Skorpion G was released in 2016 and it sent shockwaves throughout the World of Tanks community. Despite its lack of armor, the tank had a 128mm cannon, the same as what you can find on the Rheinmetall Borsig at Tier 8, the German Tier 8 tank destroyer, and was absolutely monstrous. Combined with an incredibly fast speed, this tank was really the most powerful, or at least one of the most powerful tanks on the battlefield. But how does it compare now 18 months after its release and after a whole host of other premium tanks have also been released? I don't know about you guys, but whenever I see a Skorpion G on the enemy team, I just think, oh god, not again. The tank never seems to miss my tank. It always seems to be able to penetrate my tank no matter how I drive or how fast I'm going. It always seems to be able to hit. And this all made sense to me when I got a Skorpion G for myself. As I said, this thing is like the Rheinmetall Borsig, the Tier 8 German tank destroyer, but on a whole bunch of very, very anabolic steroids. So let's take a look at some of its stats. First of all, this thing has some pretty insane gun handling stats, making it no wonder why it hits you so much. Its shown dispersion value of 0.30 is actually pretty incredible, and combined with a 2.1 second aiming time makes this thing very, very accurate, almost laser-like. And although it only uses armor-piercing rounds with a shell velocity of 920 meters per second, this actually really isn't that slow, meaning that you barely have to lead targets at all. Its gun depression is pretty good at 7 degrees, although its gun elevation at 14 degrees is kind of a disappointment, making it sometimes harder to hit shots when the enemy is above your tank. Also not great is its hidden dispersion values. In fact, its average hidden dispersion value average is 0.22, which is kind of shocking. And what that means is that the bloom of the gun when you're moving the tank is quite bad, or at least when you're moving the hull or moving forward. When you're moving the turret, it's actually not that bad. But don't be put off by the hidden dispersion values, because really it's what surprisingly makes this tank fun. No, not the dispersion values, but moving into new positions and absolutely wrecking the enemy with your hidden surprise of 128mm shells. With a power to weight ratio of 17, this thing can definitely get up to its top speed of 60 kilometers per hour. Of course, it's no light tank, it's not going to get there instantly, but it will definitely get there, and that makes this tank super duper fast. Also really handy is the 20 kilometers per hour reverse speed. Now, some people don't really care about this, but trust me, when you're over a ridgeline or where you need to get out of somewhere, that 20 kilometers per hour really does come into handy. And traverse speeds really aren't all that bad. The tank has a track traverse of 30 degrees per second, and although its turret traverse at 18 degrees per second is quite slow, the track traverse really does make up for the fact that the turret isn't that fast. And of course, we cannot talk about a tank destroyer without discussing some of its key gun stats. This tank has a base DPM of over 2,400, making it one of the highest DPMs at Tier 8. Although admittedly, tanks like the AT-15, the Tier 8 British tank destroyer, as well as the Jag Tiger 88 that you can now buy in store, they do have better DPMs. But it's also got an awesome alpha damage of 490 average damage per shot, which is absolutely huge, and it's glorious as well. It means that you can wipe off half the hit points of Tier 6 tanks, as well as a majority of the hit points of many Tier 7 tanks as well. And the penetration is also really good. The standard AP rounds have 246mm of penetration, while the APCR rounds have 311, which will go through the front of pretty much any tank in the game. Now, if you've ever played against a Skorpion, you know that there is no need to try and aim for any weak spots on this tank, because the tank is one giant weak spot. In fact, with only 30mm of armor at the most, it would be stupid if you didn't switch to HE rounds to fire at this tank, because almost anything will overmatch its armor, do full damage, and completely ruin the day of drivers like myself who love the Skorpion G. Something to keep in mind is that the credit making ability of this tank really is not that great. And that's mainly because the shell cost is so high, being just over 1,000 credits per shell. It can definitely make decent credits, but there are other tanks out there that will make credits better. For instance, pretty much any tier 8 medium tank will be able to make credits better than the Skorpion G, as well as tanks like the Jagdtiger 88, that tier 8 premium German tank destroyer counterpart of the Skorpion G. That thing is awesome at making credits because of its low shell cost as well as higher alpha damage. It doesn't have higher alpha damage than the Skorpion G, but comparatively to shell cost, it is pretty amazing. Also, the crew layout of this tank is actually really bad. Again, the Jagdtiger 88, that has the exact same crew layout as things like the Grilla 15 and the Panzer E100, those tanks, whereas this tank, it kind of has to mix and match the crews. So if you're looking for a good crew trainer, this is definitely not the tank for you. But if you were to come up to me and say, hey, thick boy, would you rather have the Skorpion G or would you rather have the Jagdtiger 88? I would hands down say the Skorpion G, because this tank, in my opinion, is just so much more fun to play. But that does not mean that you should get it, because this tank is difficult to play. You need to not rush forward, because if you do, you will die instantly. This tank cannot brawl up close and personal. It is not meant for that. It is meant for sniping and kind of making your enemies think, oh shit, where did that shell come from? But just don't rely on its camo, because it has none. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please do consider giving it a thumbs up. Tell your friends, tell your mates. Matty B is on the block making these reviews. I'll catch you next time.